Okay, so now we need to do some noise to create this animated texture that I've been talking about. So the next thing that we're going to apply to this particular layer is something called Noise Alpha. So let's go back over to our effects and presets, and we are going to look for noise, and here's Noise Alpha. So we're going to go ahead and drag and drop or double click or whatever you want to do and drop it onto that layer. So the first thing that we're going to do is the amount of noise. We're going to go ahead and bring that up, and you're going to see the effects immediately. Let's bring that up to, let's say, like 80 something. We're going to go ahead and leave this at uniform random, and you can kind of just play around with these settings. The original alpha, we're going to take from clamp to edges, which is going to give us that more solid look and make this almost like it's coming off of our letters and going into the background. So that gives us that more three-dimensional sort of look with what's going on right here. And then the last thing that we're going to do is do you see how this text is static? Well, we want some movement going on with this text. So we're going to go ahead and animate some random seed animations here. So let's bring your scrubbing tool to the beginning of the timeline. Let's toggle on the random seed. We're going to go to the end of the timeline. And I'm just going to click on this amount of times, which is this first 0. I'm going to click that in. I'm going to hit 12 and hit enter. And so if you drag your scrubbing tool across, you're going to see that nice animation throughout. And there we have our fuzzy wuzzy text. Okay, so let's go ahead and save where we're at, right? Because we need to save our project all the time, because if our computer crashes, we lose our work. All right, so again, with all of these, play around with the different options that are available. They all do something different. It would take a million years to go through everything that is possible. But, and we don't want to do that, right? We just want to have a class and a term. So the next thing that I want to do is we're actually going to take this text layer and we're going to duplicate it. And we're going to just do a little bit different of an effect application on a layer underneath, just to give a little bit more color, contrast, and depth, and visual interest to this, okay? So let's take Fuzzy Wuzzy, and all you need to do is hit Command or Control D, and it's going to create 2 of them, one on top. The one on top I want to stay the same, which is the animation that we just applied. The one on the bottom, go ahead and highlight that. What you're going to do is you're going to take off the CC radial blur, actually, and if you shut off visibility of the top one, you're going to see that really nothing's going on with the bottom layer at this point. So with your bottom layer selected, I'm going to just rename this because I'm really organized, right? Fuzzy bottom, we'll call it, just to make sure that we know that's the one that's on bottom. So what I want to do is come over to my effects panels, and I'm going to search for something called blur. And what we want to use is just the fast box blur. So my layer's selected here, so I'm just going to double click that and it'll just go ahead and add it to it. And then I'm just going to add a blur to this, maybe like 12, and it's really hard to see what's even going on. So what we need to do is let's go ahead and we're going to grab our text tool. We're going to select all the text. Now this is in the bottom text layer. And let's just change the fill, and I'm going to change it to like a light pink. Hit OK. And I'm going to click off, and you can see that pink is kind of poking out from underneath. If we shut off the top text layer, you can see the blur there. And I think if we change the hierarchy, that's going to bring that noise. Okay, so if your fast box blur is on the bottom, which it probably was, you know, your hierarchy of effects are really important. So depending on, you know, if something's not working it right, it could just be that they're in the wrong order. So if noise alpha is on top and blur is on the bottom, you want to switch those so that you get that nice texture going. So you want to have the blur on top. Okay, let's turn visibility back on of our purple layer. And then I'm going to actually, I'm going to exaggerate the blur radius just a little bit more, just so we get a little bit more depth. So now the texture is still animated on the pink layer, but like I said, I'm just getting a little extra color and visual interest and style to my text here. All right, so let's go ahead and file and save real quick. And what we're going to do now is create the paper texture that's going to go over the solid background layer. And this is going to create a little bit more texture and movement in our composition. So what we're going to do is actually, we're going to be using this paper file here. So what I want you to do is we're going to go to composition, new composition. I'm going to call this paper, and we're going to actually be using this composition in both of the techniques that we're going to cover today. Now this is going to be a little different. I want the width and the height to both be 1920, just so that I can see it in a square. So I'm going to do 1920 by 1920 on this particular composition. I'm going to hit OK. And so if I back out, I can see that this is a full square. And this is kind of useful to have a composition that's a little bit bigger than what you're working with. It just kind of depends on what you're doing, but sometimes it's nice to just, you know, make it a little bit bigger than what you need in your actual composition that you're going to be exporting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this paper JPEG and I'm going to bring it on down. And if I look at the scale of it, I can see that it's pretty big. I'm just going to scale it so that it's over a little bit like that. Now, this particular composition, I actually forgot to have you guys set it to this. We're not going to do this for 8 seconds, but we're actually going to do this for 16 frames. So we're going to have, we're going to actually have 4 layers of this paper, and we're going to have each one revealed for 4 frames. So let me show you how we're going to do this. So we've got our paper layer. It's going across the full 16 frames. And what I'm going to do is come over here and just duplicate, duplicate, duplicate so that I have 4 papers here. I am going to choose them all, and I'm going to hit my R key to bring their rotations up. And what I want to do is I want to incrementally rotate these by 60 degrees to get that full 360. Okay, so we're going to leave the bottom layer alone. And let's go ahead and we'll just start at the top layer. So for the rotation here, I'm just going to click on my amount of degrees and I'm going to hit 60, enter. Oh no, I take that back. It's 90. What am I talking about? 90 for that. 180 for the middle one. And it's hard to see this right off the bat, but stay with me. Okay, so it's 90, 180, and then 270 on this one. What am I typing? 270. Okay, Now we want each one to show for 4 frames. So I'm going to take this top layer and I'm going to pull it back to 4 frames. I'm going to take the middle one and pull it back to 8. The third one down is going to be 12. And what we should see is this changes by 90 degrees in each one. So if we hit our space bar to play, we've got this nice paper texture. It kind of looks like stop motion that's rolling forward, and that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and take this and just move it to the back of my composition tabs here. And if I come into fuzzy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my paper composition that I just created. And I have 2 because I did this earlier. But I'm going to grab paper and I'm going to drag it down into my composition. And you can see that it's fitting perfectly with this. You know, again, I made that square so that it could be a little bit versatile if I need it to be. I can do other things with it if need be, but we're going to just try to keep it simple today. Okay, so if I scrub through, you're going to see that I've got this nice paper texture animation going on. What I need this to do is I need it to loop out forever. I need it to continue to loop throughout my entire animation. And right now it's not doing that because it's only 16 frames. So we are going to go ahead and fix that. The first thing we need to do is we need to enable our time remapping, which basically allows us to manipulate the time on this layer. So Control or right click, you're going to go to time and you're going to go to enable time remapping. Under time remapping, while you're hovering over the time clock, I want you to hold down your Option or Alt key and you're going to click. Okay? What that's going to do is that's going to open your expression window. You're adding animation properties to this. This is something you may have done before. But anyways, we've got our expression capability here where we can type something in. We can also add other types of animations from here, but today we're just going to type something in, okay? So we're going to come in here. And what we're looking for is something called loop out. So I just want you to type loop, and After Effects is actually going to help us out. So we have loop out here. So we're going to choose loop out and hit enter, and you can just click off of that. What that's going to enable us to do is take this and just pull it all the way to the end. And our texture paper animation will loop out for the entirety of the composition timeline now. Isn't that cool? So now we have this great paper texture behind our Fuzzy Wuzzy, and we've got all kinds of movement and cool stuff going on in addition to the message that we're trying to give to our viewer. Now, I want my light green to still show through, so what I need to do is change the blending mode on this paper layer, this paper composition layer. So how we can manipulate the blending mode is go to Layer, and you're going to go to blending mode, and then let's just choose overlay. And I don't know if that's really giving me quite the look I'm going for. It's usually either overlay or multiply. So let's try multiply instead. Oh, there we go. Multiply looks better. Usually one or the other is going to do the trick. Okay. So that does seem to be a little bit intense. And when you're looking at motion graphics projects, you want to make sure that like your primary animation or movement is the star of the show, and that the other additive stuff isn't taking away from your main animation. So when I look at this initially, that paper texture looks neat, but it's taking my eye away from the text and moving it to the background. So what I'm going to do because of that is I'm just going to bring the opacity down on this layer. So I'm going to go down to my transform properties, and I'm just going to bring the opacity of this layer down a little bit, maybe to like 50%, and then let's see what that's looking like. So you can see it still has that nice handmade stop motion kind of texture background feel, but it's not as visually noticeable, right? So it's just an additive and it's not fighting with my primary animation that I've created. All right, so go ahead and save if you haven't saved in a while. It's a good habit. I'm really remembering that today for some reason. So we are going to go ahead and leave this, and then we're going to move on to the eye animation. So we're going to create some more wonderful, good fun in here. So see you in the next video. Okay, bye.